What is up, YouTube? Today we have a pretty interesting discussion on our hands. Has frame data ruined fighting games? Before we get into it, I just want to remind you all to hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already, since it helps the channel out a lot. But yeah, today's video is inspired by Panda Punk the God. Low-key frame data ruins fighting games. It's way more exciting and fun when people don't actually know the numbers and just play by feel and raw knowledge. Now, I don't exactly know what he means by raw knowledge. Maybe it's like knowledge he hasn't cooked up in the lab. Actually, that kind of makes sense. This kind of bars, I'm not sure if that's what Punk meant by raw knowledge, but we can say that's what he meant. Before we talk about this, I feel like I have to give a quick explanation of what frame data is, since I'm sure some of you are not quite sure what it is. Basically, the two main uses of frame data are to figure out how advantageous or disadvantageous you are when you're blocking or getting hit or hitting someone. And the second use is like figuring out how fast a move starts up. So here's a more visual example of Chun-Li's stand heavy punch. You can see Street Fighter V runs at 60 frames per second. This is Chun-Li's stand heavy punch, each individual frame of the 11 frame startup. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yup, 11 frame startup there. And then I mentioned the second use case is to talk about advantage or disadvantage. So you can see the blue Chun-Li is +2. While the red Chun-Li is -2. +2 means you can act 2 frames earlier than your opponent. -2 means you act 2 frames later than your opponent. And this means that the blue Chun-Li is at advantage since she can act earlier than her opponent. So you can imagine knowing all this frame data is pretty important to knowing like how the game works, what things are advantageous, disadvantageous, how you can punish certain things, what moves would be good in certain situations, things like that. Now, wide access to frame data isn't something that's been around forever. It's basically an evolution of the genre to help us start understanding the games faster. Like back in the day, people didn't rely on any sorts of frame data. We didn't know like what Alex's EX stomp there was on block. People just knew it was some amount of advantage. And I'm not even sure people talked about the game in frames, because if there's no wide access to frame data, why would you refer to anything in terms of frames? So Punk is basically talking about how this evolution of frame data to help us learn the games faster makes us lose out on some aspect of not knowing what's going to happen, which is arguably some part of the fun. Now, he didn't mention other things that the internet inherently gives us, like access to optimal combo routes, access to top level matches, access to Twitter tech like mix-ups. Like, take a look at this. I can go on Twitter, search hashtag DNF Dragon Knight, enter the hashtag. Okay, maybe not look at this, but look at this. My first Dragon Knight Touch of Death, 908 damage. You know how long it would have taken me in training mode to figure out a Touch of Death combo? It would have taken me like months probably, to be honest. Like, going this far into training mode is not something that I would personally do, but because we can share our findings together and look at what other people have found, like, it's so easy to just find optimal things like this. Right, and this probably isn't even optimal. Like, against some characters with more than 908 health, we might be able to figure out more in the future, and this access to information just helps the game evolve so much faster. And you know, in some ways that's good, obviously, because we learn the game more in depth and faster, but we do lose out on some of that discovery ourselves. And because of this, a decent chunk of like getting good at a fighting game is doing research, right? Doing research, looking at Twitter, looking at top level matches, instead of actually playing the game and getting raw knowledge, right? So let's take a quick look at this Brian_F tweet, which is kind of, I guess, the counter argument. I mean, I touched the stove to see if it's hot too, but having the data to double check is amazing. I really can't believe people think less information is better. Just close your eyes, don't look at the numbers. So I think this argument works for the casual level of fighting games, like just playing the game for fun. But in my opinion, I think at a competitive level, the numbers are actually part of the game currently. I think that right now, playing fighting games at like even like a semi-competitive level, doing your research, looking for your optimal combos, looking at frame data, It's all part of the game, and if you're not doing that, you're putting yourself at a severe disadvantage compared to your opponents, which is why I think it's like part of the game. Like, Punk is not really saying that less information for himself is better. He's more saying that less information for everyone is better, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I think that he does have a point that less information for the whole general public and having the game in like a less evolved state could be more fun in some aspects. This whole discussion made me think of a very similar situation with chess, where some people think that opening theory and computers have ruined the game of chess. Now, since this is mostly a Street Fighter channel and I don't talk about chess at all, I'm sure most of you guys don't know what I'm talking about when I say opening theory. But basically, chess has been played for over 1,000 years. So for the opening, which is like the first couple of moves, people have kind of figured out like what is right or wrong in these first moves. So if you're playing at like some kind of competitive level and you're playing the opening, you're not really playing your own moves, you're just playing the opening theory, which is moves that people have studied for years. And when you go to the when you go to the Super Grandmaster level, it's even crazier the amount of opening preparation that people do. With access to computers nowadays, if you have a computer and you give it a chess position, it can tell you if white is plus 1.2 advantage in a certain situation, and that means that they should probably win the game. What this means at the top level is that it's not just opening theory, but it's opening theory combined with them looking a couple moves in advance with the help of a computer, telling them what moves are good or not. And that's not like your personal skill, people would say, with the game of chess, but just like preparation, right? So here's a somewhat famous interview with Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer was one of the best chess players of all time, former world champion, and he's talking about how he actually hates chess. So the interviewer talks about creativity, which is probably what like they mean by like actual chess skill. And Bobby Fischer says that that's the problem with chess, is that there is a little bit of that chess that is still fun to him, that's like being good at chess. But there's too much of it that's memorization, with trying to figure out the best opening to give you like that slight advantage. So I think when you look back at this tweet, you know, it's not a right or wrong kind of thing. It's a personal preference kind of thing, because over time a game is going to evolve, and some people are going to like how the game has evolved because like it's kind of a different game now, and some people are not, and that just comes down to personal preference. And this applies to all games, so I just wanted to take a clip of Valorant, which I think explains this pretty well, to show that it's not just fighting games and I guess chess, which I also showed, but it's kind of any game where sharing like tech or evolving the game through social media is kind of a thing. So just a little bit of information on Valorant if you're not familiar with the game. EG is planting the bomb, and once they plant the bomb, LG has to defuse it. And it takes them about 7 seconds to defuse the bomb, and they have 45 seconds once the spike is planted to defuse it. So they plant it up here, already pretty cool, because LG has to try and get to that tight corner to defuse it. And you would think like this is a first-person shooter, all the skill comes from shooting people, but here there are 2 players from EG winning the round by staying away and not shooting people while he shoots someone there. This Viper player threw the poison here to stall out some time. The Sova players threw some shock arrows to stall some more time, and then they can shoot through this like square wall right here, I think it is, to kill the person defusing the spike and stall for even more time and win the round. So I imagine a lot of FPS fans are like, where's all the shooting? That's where the skill of a first-person shooter is in the aim and being able to kill the person before they kill you. But as it turns out, in Valorant, there's cases like this where technology can still win you game. Some people are going to like this evolution of the game and some people aren't. So has frame data ruined fighting games? That's the question. And as I said, I think it comes down to personal preference. And here's why I personally don't think so. And it's kind of 2 reasons. The first, I actually like frame data. I like knowing what's going on. I like being very comfortable knowing why something happened and not being confused. Like, I thought I was at an advantage, but I don't know. I thought I could punish finish something, but I'm not really sure. I think being able to put that number to a move actually makes the game more enjoyable because everything just feels more precise, and I feel like I have a better understanding of the game. The second reason is I don't think frame data is even close to the most important thing to be good at in a fighting game. There's so many other aspects of being good at and improving at a fighting game to outplay your opponent. Like, for one, you're neutral, and neutral is not affected by frame data like at all because neither of you have advantage or disadvantage. And I think neutral is one of the coolest parts of fighting games, and it's really cool to feel yourself improve at it. You know, stuff like resource management and decision making, no amount of frame data or Twitter tech is going to teach you that kind of stuff, and it's what I feel like is the actual skill at the game instead of like just random pieces of information that you pick up by playing the game and not knowing frame data. So yeah, personally I feel like I prefer having frame data than just playing by feel and raw knowledge. I know other people would prefer otherwise, but also I feel like that initial barrier of learning frame data and other kinds of information that you need to know to give yourself a competitive advantage. There's still so much skill besides that in a fighting game, and that's why I think it doesn't really ruin fighting games at all. Maybe it ruins it a little bit if you don't prefer frame data over feel and raw knowledge, but I think there's still so much left to enjoy about fighting games. Anyways, that's going to be it for this discussion type video. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think frame data ruins fighting games? Do you enjoy frame data? I personally do. Also, let me know in the comments if you like this type of content. I'd like to know what you guys think about it. And don't forget to leave a like on the video and hit subscribe down below. Helps the channel out a lot, and I'll see you in the next video.